because it will not be even close. Continued success for Tecumseh High School. We have a final for hockey. Lenawee United took on a power in the SEC White and a division rival, Dexter. Lenawee United would fall 8-0. Dreadnought struck 4 times in the game in the opening 9:50 to establish a lead, set the tone. Lenawee United would pick up the physical play. Could not get one past. Lenawee finished 0 for 3 on the power play. Dexter was also 0 for. They were 0 for 2. Lenawee United will host Chelsea on Friday, and that home game will be at the Chelsea Arctic Coliseum. So they're not playing all their games in Adrian. For their home, they will play some in Chelsea. We have some girls prep basketball scores. Madison 52 over Whiteford's 22. Bedford over Monroe 55 to 46. Some games slated for today. Boys games. Genesee Christian will travel here to Lenawee Christian. Adrian goes up to Chelsea. Ida at Onsted. Tecumseh hosting Jackson. Clinton hosting Dundee. Blissfield goes over to Hudson. Whiteford at BD. Sand Creek and Erie Mason. That's for the boys. The girls, Lenawee Christian at Columbia. Chelsea at Adrian. Tecumseh at Jackson. Summerfield at Sand Creek. Seattle Heights women's basketball team outscored Aquinas 44-29 in the second half to pull away and get a 10-point win Wednesday night, 65-55. Shelby Morrow recorded a double-double, 13 points, 10 boards to help Siena Heights. The Saints, they're now 7-3 overall, 4-2 in the conference. They have a busy week this week, so good job, Lady Saints, getting off to a good start. Thursday's college schedule for Lenawee County. Adrian College will entertain Hope. AC Women will go to Hope. Siena Heights, they travel to Ann Arbor to take on Concordia. Rex Moe, as we know, is 6'4" junior winger for the Adrian College men's hockey team from Grand Rapids. Won his first ever Player of the Week award for the NCHA. And looking forward to the series upcoming against Marion. Talking to Coach Krug yesterday, he wanted to schedule what is now the Power in the Northern Division with St. Norbert not playing, so it should be a great one at the Arrington this weekend. Detroit Lions, they're locked into a wide receiver, thank you, at the number 7 pick in the next draft. According to the Free Press, mock draft released Wednesday by ESPN analyst Todd McShay predicted the Lions would pick Devonta Smith, Heisman Trophy winning Alabama wideout. He was outstanding, over 1,800 yards, 23 touchdowns, 117 catches on the year. The Lions could lose Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones if they are not able to re-sign them. Also, Danny Amendola is a free agent this offseason. I love that. Really do.
Could be an interesting team next year, that's for sure.
A lot of new pieces.
Yep.
The Tigers might have found an answer to their first base vacancy, the Free Press reporting. Slugger Renato Nunez signed a minor league contract Wednesday with an invitation to the big league spring training, the team announced. He's 26 years old. He was designated for assignment by Baltimore in November. He had 31 homers in 151 games back in 2019. He's 6'1", 220 pounds. He hit .256 last year, 12 homers, 31 RBIs in the abbreviated campaign. So maybe an answer at first base. Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban has relented, and the national anthem will be played before home games this season after the NBA reiterated its long-standing league policy that, in quotes, to include the song. The league's initial reaction to Cuban's decision was to say teams were free to conduct pregame activities as they wished, with the unusual circumstances created by the pandemic. Most teams don't have fans at their home games, but the NBA abruptly reversed course with Cuban's decision reverberating around the country, including a question put to White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki during her daily briefing. The Mavericks said they would play the anthem starting Wednesday against Atlanta. So a quick controversy around the NBA yesterday. And that's going to do it for our sports update. Chuck will have it at 8 o'clock as we move on through a Thursday morning inside the cave. All right, this was a topic that you really pitched to me yesterday, and
Yeah.
we bought into it hook, line, and sinker. I think it's a good one. So, I talked about it before the update, but kind of what brought about us talking about Detroit sports and being in a playoff situation.
Well, I mean, we looked at the other cities that have kind of been successful recently. I just celebrating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers down yesterday. They had their boat parade, but Tampa's been a powerhouse this year, getting to the championships in football, baseball with the Rays, and their Lightning won the Stanley Cup. So 2 out of 3, and they don't even have a basketball team. So, of the 3 major sports they have, all of them reached the pinnacle. And then over on the West Coast, you had Los Angeles that seemed to be just remarkable. I looked at the stats last night, and every single team in LA, they had in every sport made the playoffs. The only ones that didn't were the Kings, but the most recently was in 2018. So it became a question of, okay, we have these powerful cities that have sports just breeding over and over. They're just success. Well, when's Detroit going to kind of get on that boat or, change ship? For Detroit, we're averaging 4 years. Every 4 years, we might get a playoff glimpse. The most recent was the Pistons back in 2019 when they lost in the first round. But other than that, we haven't done anything. I mean, our most recent championship was the Red Wings in 2008. So it became a question of when.
That's rough to hear.
It is. It really is. And I looked at Boston. Boston's a city of champions, especially before Brady left. They had, a championship in football and hockey. Football, baseball in 2018, hockey in 2011, and basketball in 2008. So their least recent top 4 championship was our most recent for Boston. So it became a question of, and I'm looking at it, and now it's when are we going to win a championship, but when is just a Detroit team going to make the playoffs? It's kind of crazy to see. There's not many cities with all 4 sports teams. I looked at that last night, and there's only, 13 cities that have all 4 sports. And Tampa Bay is not even one of them. As I mentioned, they don't have a basketball team. So there's these cities that are doing remarkably well, not just in one sport, but across the field. And it's where's Detroit going to get in the mix here? It's tough because
that's got to be. It's a pretty downer topic to start the show.
It is.
But it's important because every team at this point is in a rebuild.
Right.
Now, is rebuild another word for suck? Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's hope.
When
when something's bad, all you can have is hope.
Right. I mean, you gotta imagine that. I mean, Tampa Bay it wasn't like Tampa Bay's been making the playoffs in football for years. It's been a while, and it took Brady coming to change that whole picture. But all of a sudden, they went from having one of the longest playoff droughts to being just Super Bowl champions. It wasn't just, oh, hey, we're going to make the playoffs and be considered that good. They just went full steam, 0 to 100. And so for Detroit to look at and say, hey, we have all 4 major sports, but we can't even make the playoffs.
Right. When we were doing some show prep, I asked you, I was like, do we want to do team to win a championship in that sport? And we were like, no, that's not realistic. How about make a conference championship? No, make the playoffs.
Just make the playoffs.
The most recent team you said was the Pistons.
Yeah, and
2 years ago.
And they lost in the first round to that was LeBron's.
I'm gonna say that would be the Lakers probably.
Yeah.
In 4.
Yeah, and we got swept.
Yeah.
So that wasn't a pretty picture. That was how we made it. Nice. That's our reward. We play LeBron and we get swept. So, it's been tough. You know, the Red Wings, who had been so dominant for so long, it's been a tough kind of to see them rebuild. Their last appearance was in 2016. The Tigers' last appearance was 2014. And believe it or not, the Lions did make it in 2016. But we obviously know they haven't won a playoff game since 1991. So, not even, like, you know, yeah, we've made it a few times as a Lions fan, but for them, it's also like, even if they make it, I feel like that's not good enough anymore. Because we've just been, I mean, we haven't won a playoff game in 30, it's going to be 30 years this year.
Yeah. Well, in both of our lifetimes, we haven't seen it. To put everything in perspective of
exactly
how long it's been, I haven't been breathing. The Lions have not won a playoff game, and
we've produced Hall of Fame wide receivers. We've had
Hall of Fame running back.
Like we've had great players. We've had great
Stafford, who probably will be a Hall of Famer.
Can't imagine he won't be.
Yeah.
But so we're looking at it. Okay, what team out of Detroit is going to make the playoffs first? Right now, I might have to go with the Pistons, even though they are having a rough year. But at this point, I think there's more pieces in place there. And I think, like, it's one of those things where they made it 2 years ago, and I think they might just make it again and end up getting swept. Not this year. I don't think they make it at all this year. They're pretty far out of that picture. But I think they do have an opportunity within, next year, as long as they can kind of keep building. Dwayne Casey's a great coach. He did great things in Toronto. I don't see why not. The Tigers, full rebuild. The Lions, full rebuild. That's from head coaching on down. It's and the Red Wings. I mean,
you suck.
Yep.
That's to sum it up.
Yeah.
So.
And there's different criteria for each sport. Number one, to make the playoffs.
Right.
Some sports it's easier. Like I feel like hockey, it's relatively. I'm not saying,
No, but
you have so many games, so many ways, so many chances to.
It's like half the field, right? It's
right.
It's a big portion of the league that makes it. So for us to not make it, it's kind of
especially last year.
Yeah.
Right. When 24 teams made it.
Right. Exactly.
The Wings were sitting at home,
and we still didn't make it.
Yeah. But there's things like that. There's the nature of the sport.
Right.
Like in the NBA, you need, we'll say, 6 really solid players.
Right.
And maybe one great one or 2 really good ones, and you'll make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Will you win a championship? No. But you need to get 4 or 5 guys right.
You gotta have that foundation. Yeah.
In the NFL, how many do you need?
The NFL is such a tough one because, as we saw, the Washington football team this year makes it, and they weren't the best team. There was, and it's one of those things where the NBA, I do like their setup of a just top 8. Okay, they do have their divisions, but it's really just conference and conference. Western, Eastern. So, it's tough to, and baseball is the same way.
But you could say that's easier to make it in the NFL because you only have to be better than
your
3
teams than the entire AFC or NFC. That's fair. That is true. I mean, I didn't really think of it that way. I don't know. I guess thinking of a Lions fan. Okay, it's not as fair. It doesn't feel as fair because we're playing in a good division. We play Green Bay twice a year. We play the Vikings, who have been pretty solid, and the Bears. I mean, the Bears made the playoffs this year, so it's at any given point, two of these 4 teams, probably out of the North, are gonna be in the playoffs. So if you're a Washington football team fan, a Giants fan, a Cowboys fan, you're like, hey, we love it. I don't have to worry about these, other teams. I don't have to worry about trying to beat, the Bucks or anyone else. So,
right. There's other factors. With these Detroit teams, what do we have right now? What base are we starting at? How close are we?
Yeah.
Talent-wise, do we have the right coach? Is the GM doing the right things? So, you got the Pistons making all these moves preseason. Get out of here, you come here. Nope, you're gone. You're traded. We don't know who these people are.
It's been tough. I mean, we got a lot of your foreign players, which is kind of very different. But that's where the league's kind of going is European. But then we're getting rid of some of our stars. We just traded Derrick Rose away. We picked up Dennis Smith Jr. So we're making moves, and it seems like they can't make up their mind if they want to win or not. Like it's like they can't decide if we're going to just accept that we're going to be the first draft pick of the year, or we're going to try and make or well in the lottery that is for the NBA, or we're going to try and make a push. We win these games that we probably shouldn't win. We make good teams look average. We played the Nets 2 nights ago and beat them by 11. We take the Lakers to double overtime before that. These are two of the best teams in the league if you ask anyone. And tonight we'll play the Indiana Pacers, who just got blown out by the Brooklyn Nets last night. So who knows what's going to really happen? It's on any given night, anyone in the NBA seems like they could win a game. So that's I think what's kind of interesting of the sport.
Before we go to break, just to reiterate, what Detroit sports team will make the playoffs first? Professional sports, the four
of the
major sports: Tigers, Red Wings, Pistons, Lions. Who will make the playoffs first? I've been stalling on purpose.
Yeah, I want to know.
Because it's tough. My heart wants Yzerman to work in Detroit.
It's like
get
a
the Red
storybook.
Wings there.
Yep.
But man, they're so far away.
Yeah, it's tough.
I think they're far away from competing for a title.
Yeah.
The Lions, they hit the reset button
Completely.
Who knows? I mean, this thing could come together.
It could
and
come
they make
quick.
a run, and Jared Goff is the guy, and we draft Devonta Smith. Defense does whatever, and they're fine. But in terms of teams that are ready, it's not the Tigers.
No.
They might be closer than we think.
It's true.
But I think you're right, Chuck. I think in terms of making the playoffs, we need to look to the LCA, Little Caesars Arena, and the team that plays on the hardwood. I think it is the Pistons. Probably not this year.
No.
The way things are going.
It's I think that's fair to say not this year, but I do think they're just the closest.
And I value the lack of roster hits that you need to get. Like in football, all right, you need an offensive line that's pretty good. You need a competent quarterback, a good defense. That's a lot of guys. In the NBA,
a lot of pieces, yeah.
You get 3 guys, boom, boom, boom.
And as the Heat, the Miami Heat put together last year, once you get into the playoffs, you have anything. Anything can happen. So you have that opportunity. It's just really having that foundation, having a core of group guys that want to play together and click. So, and I think, like you said, 5 guys, 6 guys, it's not as much as 22 on an NFL team. So, in 22, that's just your starters. You got as we saw, if you don't have good backups, then you're going to get smoked by Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. So.
That's right, especially at key positions. So there we go. We continue Pistons talk after the commercial break. Talk about Lenawee United hockey coming up later in the hour. Big Ten basketball, University of Michigan, lock of the week, coming up in the second hour of the show. Don't go anywhere. You're inside the cave with yours truly, Ian Went and Chuck Moran. 7:27 Thursday, February 11th. With that, you're inside the cave, 96.5 FM, 965thecave.com. You can join in on YouTube. We are live inside the cave today. You can find the link on our social media on Facebook and Twitter. I posted up the link today so you can be in the cave with yours truly, Ian Wentz, and Chuck Moran, who's filling in for Pat Hayes, who is sipping on a cool beverage on some warm beach somewhere in Florida. So hope Pat's doing well. Hope you're doing well. And appreciate Chuck being in here. We continue with our Pistons talk. Chuck, lead it away. I mean, to me, you seem like an NBA guy.
Been following it more and more, I think. It's been growing interest, and unfortunately have a rough team to follow. But
it's hard when your team sucks to like a sport professionally.
No, but the entire league's kind of interesting right now, so it's been kind of fun to keeping tabs on that. We just made a big trade. I don't know if it's big. The names are big. Derrick Rose, a former MVP. He's not having MVP numbers, but he's still playing really well for what this is, year number 12 in the league for him. So, he's playing really well, 3-time All-Star. Trade him for Dennis Smith Jr. to the Knicks, and also a 2021 second-round pick. That was on Monday. So, realistically, I don't know if Smith Jr. is going to be the biggest addition to the team. Like I said, we actually haven't even given him a jersey number yet. Look at the roster. Yeah, he still doesn't have a jersey number yet. So we'll see what number he's going to wear when he does make his debut with the Pistons. It is a little interesting because a former MVP, as we just saw a big trade in the NFL happen, I don't know if a number 2 overall pick is kind of what you expect, a second round overall pick for a former MVP player. So I think the Knicks might have got off pretty scot-free. They might have been the winner on that trade. I don't know if the Pistons really got...
You got some breaking news, Chuck. Breaking news. I disagree with you.
Yeah?
We'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
Keep going. I just wanted to point that out there that I think the Pistons won the trade.
Okay.
Go
ahead. Smith Jr. hasn't, produced as much, and maybe that's, a sign of the times. He just hasn't gotten the opportunity yet. He's only been in the league for 3 years. I don't think he's really been given a big role, kind of like Jeremy Grant coming to the Pistons in the offseason. He didn't have a big role in Denver, but now that he has an opportunity here in Detroit, he's playing great. Probably going to win Most Improved Player. Knock on some wood that he hangs on. He's looking great, averaging. I think it was. Let's see. He's averaging 24 points a game, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists in the 24 games so far this year. So great numbers for a guy that really, I don't think we expected that from when we picked him up. He's been outplaying Blake Griffin, who's been inconsistent, and it was about time Derrick Rose, he's worth a little bit more money than what we were kind of paying him, and he's starting to come back to maybe be closer to his MVP year. So let's try to get something for him. I just think they could have done more, I guess, and maybe that's me just trying to compare it to from sport to sport, which I shouldn't do. Mm-hmm. These two teams are like NFL and NBA are completely different. The salary in them, the amount of money in the sports, a lot different.
Emphasis on the individual in the NBA as opposed to football.
Yeah,
necessarily.
So, it's definitely different. But with that being said, the Pistons they're making moves, and they have some of these pieces that I think are good. Like, we have a very young team. Overall, the guy who's been in the league the longest is Wayne Ellington at 11 years. And then you have Blake at 10, but everyone else is well under 10 years.
I think Plumlee's been around for a minute, right?
He's been in 7 years, and he's our third longest on the team, and Jeremy Grant's fourth with 6. But 6 years in the NBA isn't that long, especially when you have LeBron's playing 18, which is, you have a few guys that get to that mile marker. Yeah. Dirk Nowitzki, Kobe, Michael Jordan. So very few though, but not also not uncommon to hit that 10 marker. 10's kind of, I feel like, a common reach. So I think our team's young, not a ton of experience, which is promising for the future, which is, as we mentioned, potentially making the
A
playoffs.
little brighter than other teams in Detroit.
Yeah, exactly. But I want to hear your point.
Yeah.
You think the Knicks, or you think the Pistons won that trade, so.
100%.
Yeah?
So what do they get for Derrick Rose as a second round pick and a guard, point guard, wherever Smith Jr. will end up playing? I value that second round pick, and I do that because this team, like we said, is rebuilding. Having a guy like Rose, sure, it's kind of a luxury for a rebuilding team. To say wasting talent or wasting his time, for lack of a better word, sounds about right. The only reason Blake Griffin's still around is because that contract no one wants.
Right.
They would have shipped him out in the offseason if they could.
Yeah.
No one wants him. He's old, injury prone,
Yeah. He's just
and overpaid
inconsistent,
for what he brings to the team.
Lob City is long behind him now.
Yeah, I'm arguing that for Derrick Rose. When you think of Derrick Rose, the listeners out there, do you think of either A or B? Do you think A, MVP, or do you think B, injury? When I think Derrick Rose, I think injury.
That's a good question. Yeah.
I think he's not on the court enough to bring a team
Right.
to championship contention. Now,
Yeah.
when he was younger, sure. But then when that big injury happens,
Right. I mean, it's
and it
tough
lingers
to come back.
and things compile on, I think it's a big win for the Pistons. They get a player and a pick. What you do with that pick, you have options. If you want to move up in the first round, trying to get a guy, you can do it. If you want to stay there in that second round, take that pick, get that player. It gives you that flexibility. We signed Rose as a free agent. We didn't give up anything for him, and I think we get decent value in return. I don't think the Knicks, I don't think they won the trade, but I don't think it was a bad move for them. I think they're in a different spot than the Pistons are.
They are. They're right about 500.
Yeah, they need to make a move like this.
And it's right for them. It's kind of that option of, okay, like we're more so not looking for a playoff push this year. Whereas the Knicks, they're right on that bubble of being in the the Eastern Conference side playoffs. So if you want to make that push, I mean, Derek, if he gets that, and he's with the coach of the Knicks, I forget his name, but I didn't realize that he's been on every team.
Thibodeau?
Yeah, he's coached Derrick Rose on every team that he's had. The Bulls. He was a USA coach. So when Derrick Rose played on Team USA, he was there. When he was with the Cavaliers, he was there. Like, he's kind of followed him through his career. It's like wherever the coach goes, within a few months, Derrick Rose is going to show up and be there too. So maybe, I don't know if that's good or bad. I mean, he was there when he was MVP back with the Bulls, but that was, like you said, that was before a massive injury. And it is one of those things that you see these guys that get injured, and it just changes who they are. It changes how they play, what their repertoire is. And it's tough.
Traumatic, horrendous thing to happen. Like, you tear your ACL. Do I want to play the sport again?
Right.
Like, if there's going to be further damage, I could.
Yeah.
In favoring that ACL, I could tear something else.
Right.
Depending on
definitely.
Put my balance. And
it's like, when you sprain an ankle, you're more likely to sprain it again because you're just more prone to having that injury. An ACL is no different. You can have it repaired, you can do rehab, but it's also that kind of lingering in your mind. Are you able to be as explosive? You're like, if I make this cut this one way, is my knee going to handle it? That's why I think it's very impressive to see, like, Kevin Durant, when he's playing and he's dropping 30 points, and he's coming off an Achilles, which arguably is harder than an ACL. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're both terrible. You don't want you wouldn't wish them on your worst enemy. But he's coming back and he's looking even as good, if not better, than he was when he was an MVP. So it's like, it's not impossible, but also it is understandable to see why Derrick Rose is not the Derrick Rose of MVP 2009 or 10 when he won the youngest MVP in league history.
Are you surprised the Pistons made the move?
Not really. I don't think so.
Are you happy they did?
I like Derrick. I think he's but at the same time, like you said, it wasn't. He's not really valued at what we need right now.
It's like Stafford being on the Lions.
Right.
This team's going to be bad for a while.
Yeah, and it's like
I don't have many years left. Like, give me a team that is a willing trade partner.
And I mean, I'm sure Blake is probably wants that too. I'm sure he's probably, but it's like, like you said, no one wants to pick him up. When he was with the Clippers, Lob City, and going off, that team was fun to watch. But and we've gotten glimpses of Blake being still having that in his tank, still being able to have the moves, the shooting abilities there. I mean, when we played the Lakers the first time of the season, Blake dropped like 26 on him, and he looked great. But then I think last time, just 2 nights ago when we played him, I think he only had like 4 points in 33 minutes. Like, he's out there a big portion of the game and not doing much. He's just kind of a body.
Yeah.
So, it's tough to see that, where we ought to get some of these names. But right now, if I say, hey, who's the biggest star on the Pistons, it's Blake Griffin. But that's not saying much.
It's pretty much name only at this point. So for Derrick, it's his second time with the Knicks. He was there 2016-17. Then he went to Cleveland, Minnesota, signed by Detroit, traded for a second-round pick and Dennis Smith Jr. I think it's a win for the Pistons. Chuck thinks it's a win for the Knicks. Either way, it happened.
Yep.
Let's see what they do moving forward. Let's see what the Knicks do with them.
Yeah.
And what the Pistons decide to do with that pick and with Dennis Smith Jr. as the teams are right now on clearly different paths.
Right.
Pistons hanging out in the basement. Knicks, they're looking up. They see the light at the top of the stairwell into the main level of the home. So we're going to take a break. On the other side, we'll talk some local high school hockey as Lenawee United skated for the first time this season after a lengthy layoff, wait, uncertainty. They're back at it again. And some interesting stats I'll throw out to you from Siena Heights University's Sports Information Department. Not only did the Lady Saints win a big night for Peyton Banks, and Kevin Rice for the men's team had a career high in their loss. So we'll have that coming up next inside the Cave with yours truly, Ian Went and Chuck Moran. Welcome back inside the cave. Just about 10 minutes till 8 o'clock on a Thursday, February 11th. Ian Wendt, Chuck Moran with you till 9, talking all things sports. A big hour coming up. Which Big Ten men's basketball teams are contenders? And who's pretenders out of the conference? At 8:25, John Borton from the Wolverine magazine will be calling into the show to talk about Michigan athletics as they get back underway and are locked of the weekend coming up toward the end of the show. We'll get to Lenawee United hockey here in just a second. A couple of notes from the Siena Heights games yesterday for basketball. The men's team lost to Aquinas 72-62 out in Grand Rapids. The Saints fall to 1-6, 1-5 in the WAC, but a career high 29 points for Kevin Rice, senior from Detroit. Big night for him. He had 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and 5 steals. So an excellent game for Kevin, coming off a WAC Player of the Week honor. So congratulations to him, but another tough loss for the Saints. The women's team, they beat Aquinas by 10, as we mentioned in the update. A big night for Peyton Banks. She tallied 20 points. That point total gets her to an even 1,000 career points. She is the 12th Saints women's basketball player to reach the 1,000 career points milestone. So congratulations to Peyton Banks and her excellent career at Siena Heights. It's not over. A lot of work ahead for her, but 1,000 points is an excellent collegiate achievement. So here we go. We had hockey last night out in Dexter. Lenawee United laced them up after a long layoff, wait, uncertainty. When can we play? Where can we play? How do we have to play?
Right.
They know. They did it. And they went to Dexter and took a tough loss, 8-0 to start the season. It's an SEC White Division rival, quality team in Dexter. Just a quick start for them, Chuck. 4 goals in the opening 9.
That's a very quick paced game to get going that fast. And I'm sure it's tough to get started. You know, a lot of uncertainty in all contact sports in the high school level right now, and for them to finally kind of get underway, you know, it's not the start you look for.
No, and it's a really young Lenawee United team. Obviously, Ian, they're high schoolers. They're going to be young. No. We're talking about the team's existence, people. Yeah. Young team. It's just their second season. But tough draw out the gate to get Dexter for Lenawee United. Goalie Keegan Ralph from Tecumseh faced 21 shots in the opening frame. Finished the night 19 saves against 23 shots before he was replaced by Seth Kordzin from Onsted. So the Tecumseh senior started in net. The freshman from Onsted came into play. He stopped his first 12 shots in relief, but then Dexter found their scoring in the third with 4 goals on 10 shots. If there's something that Lenawee United can look at, is they held the Dexter to 0-2 on the power play.
That's
so
good.
The penalty kill working.
Yeah, it could be nice to see some turnover on their power play opportunities, though. Going 0-3 on their own is a little tough, but hey, got to look at the positives. Killing 2 penalties on a team that scores 8 goals on you, that's you're doing something right. So at least you have that to build from. Hopefully use that defense, throughout the majority of the game.
That's right. Turn defense into offense.
Yep.
For Lenawee United. Word on the street in our group text that we will have Tyler Texter, the coach for Lenawee United, on next week. We're looking at Tuesday for that, so hopefully we get that interview lined up. And Chuck, you'll be back Tuesday, right?
Yeah, I'm excited to have a chat with him, and it'll be fun on Tuesday with me and John Kane.
I'm sure that was a fun show.
It was. I had a good time. It was a good time with John.
Oh, we can be honest here. He's probably not listening, so I'm just kidding. It was good. I tuned in for a little bit on Tuesday, and you guys sounded good. Up next for Lenawee United, they try to get in the win column, it'll be tough. They're taking on Chelsea Friday at the Chelsea Arctic Coliseum, and Lenawee United will be the home team. They play a few of their home games up there. Game slated for a 7 o'clock start. Spectators are limited to 2 per participant through a closed online process. So you can follow at Lenawee H on Twitter and Lenawee United High School Hockey on Facebook for in-game updates and summaries. So if you're a parent or someone who wants to go watch and you want to get those tickets, I would contact the team and see how you can get those tickets. But they're in action again on Friday. We have some quick scores, Chuck, we want to get to. There were some boys basketball games last night.
Yeah, we had some boys high school basketball across the county. In listening area, we had Grass Lake taking on Hanover Horton. Hanover Horton won 67-48. Tecumseh faced Madison, winning 55-41. Michigan Center came down and played, well, we don't know if they played at Manchester, but they played Manchester and won 74-33. Big win right there. Napoleon beat Vandercook Lake Jackson 74-35. So those are the high school boys basketball scores that we had from last night.
All right, we'll have those read for you again here in a few minutes for the 8 o'clock update to be paired with the girls' scores. But it's always fun when 2 county teams can play each other and they're not from the same conference. To see Tecumseh play Madison, a cool matchup. Madison off a tough triple overtime loss to Summerfield earlier this week, but didn't get any easier as they play a Tecumseh team that is up and coming. They struggled a couple of years ago, but they're building something there in Tecumseh. So a good win for them, a tough start for Madison.
For sure.
So coming up on the end of hour number 1 here inside the cave, be sure to find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you might as well subscribe to the YouTube channel we're live on right now, Lenawee Broadcasting Company, so you can get notified when you're inside the cave. You can transport yourself all the way to downtown Adrian and get yourself inside the cave. That's on Lenawee Broadcasting Company. We're live right now, so find the link on Facebook and Twitter. So, hello. 8 o'clock hour, Big Ten, men's basketball. What teams are pretenders? Who are contenders? Contenders coming up. John Borton with the Wolverine magazine, senior editor at 8:25. And our lock of the weekend.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah,
coming
up
fun
at the end of the show this morning. So keep it tuned in right here on 96.5 FM and 965thecave.com. You're listening to Chuck Moran and yours truly, Ian Wentz. We'll be right back with hour number 2. That's right, a whole nother hour inside the cave. Ian Went, Chuck Moran with you till 9 o'clock this morning, talking all things sports. So glad to have you along with us. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Give us likes, follows, subscriptions, all that good stuff. We are live on our YouTube channel this morning. That's over on Lenawee Broadcasting Company on YouTube. You can look that up and go to the Inside the Cave. Or the easier thing would be to subscribe to that so you get notified when we're live. And if you are just on Facebook or Twitter, I know some people are, you can find the link that way. Just link on over and join us inside the cave. We're welcoming to everyone that wants to climb inside the cave with us.
Join.
Yeah, it's dry. It's relatively warm on this cold February morning. And we get our 8 o'clock hour started like we always do with a sports update.
Now for an Inside the Cave sports update.
That's right, going to start with some Tecumseh High School bowling. They faced Saline last night and are still undefeated. The Tecumseh High School varsity boys, girls, and as well as the JV boys all scored victories over the Hornets of Saline High School. The varsity boys swatted the Hornets 21-9. The girls varsity smacked the Hornets 29-1.
What was that first adjective?
Swatted.
Oh man, who wrote that?
And the JV boys crushed the Hornets 28-2. A lot of adjectives right there. Oh, verbs. The THS varsity boys got off to a quick Baker game start, rolling games of 252 and 227. In the first set of regular games, freshman Caden Saltz pitched a big 275 game, along with senior Nate Ewing's solid 2025. 225. What did I say? 2025? What? No. 225. In the second game, freshman Owen Williams rolled a 225 as well to close out the game, to close out the scoring. The Lady Tribe were led by senior Tia Hunt's game of 205 and 200. Junior Abby Weirden fired a strong 238. And the girls' big game of the days were rolled by freshman Brooke Costco. On the JV side, the boys were led by freshman Jared Winiski's 215 game, sophomore Andrew Rowe, and junior Tyson Tennyson, who pitched a 213. Freshman Garrison Wynick fired a 200 game to close out the day. Yeah, that's a lot of 200s. That's a lot of really good bowling out there. The Lenawee United got their season started against Dexter last night. Tough opening game, losing 8-0. The Lenawee United will host the Chelsea Bulldogs on Friday, February 12th at the Chelsea Arctic Coliseum. That game will start at 7 p.m. Again, currently, because of COVID and all the regulations, only a limit of 2 spectators per participant, and that is through a closed online process to get those tickets. In boys high school basketball, Hanover Horton took on Grass Lake, won 67-48. Tecumseh and Madison squaring off. Tecumseh got the win, 55 over the Trojans at 41. Michigan Center and Manchester, 74 for Michigan Center, 33 for Manchester. Napoleon beat Vandercook Lake 74-35. In girls high school basketball, we had Madison and Whiteford, 52 for Madison, 22 Whiteford. And Bedford and Monroe, little SEC action, 55 for Bedford to Monroe's 46. A lot of high school games being played tonight, this Thursday, February 11th. Genesee Christian will come to Lenawee Christian. Adrian heads to Chelsea. This is all boys basketball, by the way. Ida is at Onsted. Jackson will face off at Tecumseh. Dundee at Clinton. Blissfield at Hudson. Whiteford at Britton Deerfield. And Sand Creek at Erie Mason. On the girls' side of high school basketball, Lenawee Christian will be at Columbia. Chelsea will come to town, take on Adrian. And Tecumseh will be up at Jackson with Summerfield here at Sand Creek. A lot of big games going on. In college basketball, we have some updates on the Saints. The Siena Heights women's basketball team outscored Aquinas 44-29 in the second half to pull ahead in a 65-55 win on the road Wednesday night. Shelby Morrow recorded a double-double with 13 points and 10 rebounds to help lead the Saints to the win. Also in other college basketball news, we had games tonight. Adrian College men will entertain Hope, and the AC women are at Hope tonight. So, little Bulldogs versus the Dutch tonight. Siena Heights Lady Saints travel to Ann Arbor to take on Concordia. In other Adrian College athletics news, Rex Moe, a 6'4" junior winger on the Adrian College men's NCAA hockey team from Grand Rapids, and he just won his first ever Player of the Week award in the NCHA. And got to be happy when you're the coach and your team is playing so well. That was his first, as I mentioned, first Player of the Week award in the North Division, and he is leading the team with 8 goals of their 41 on the season so far. So, great start to the season for Rex and the men's hockey team. Some news from the Lions. As we're in the official offseason of the NFL, Detroit Lions are locked into a wide receiver with the number 7 pick in the 2021 NFL Draft. According to the Free Press, in his second mock draft released Wednesday, ESPN analyst Todd McShay predicted the Lions would pick Devontae Smith, the Heisman Trophy winning Alabama wideout. Smith racked up 1,856 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 117 receptions in 2020. Those are really good numbers. Heisman-worthy numbers, obviously. Lions could lose Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones if we're unable to re-sign them. So, a couple of switches, it looks like. I mean, an already changing culture right there. It's a lot of changes going on in Motown with the Lions. Looking to the Tigers. They might have found an answer to their first base vacancy. The Free Press is reporting slugger Renato Nunez signed a minor league contract Wednesday with an invitation to big league spring training. The team announced the 26-year-old, designated for assignment by the Baltimore Orioles in November, crushed 31 home runs in 151 games in 2019. Nunez is a 6'1", 220-pound infielder, and he hit .256 with 12 home runs and 31 RBIs across the 51 games of last year. He racked up 43 homers and 131 RBIs in 203 games to go with a .247 batting average over the 2019 and 2020 seasons. So, sounds like a solid pickup for the Tigers there. In the NBA, some controversy, a quick open and shut case here. Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban has relented, and the national anthem will be played before home games this season after the NBA reiterated its long-standing league policy to include the song. The league's initial reaction to Cuban's decision was to say teams were free to conduct pregame activities as they wished with the unusual circumstances created by the coronavirus pandemic. Most teams don't have fans at home games anyways. But the NBA abruptly reversed course with Cuban's decision reverberating around the country, including a question put to White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki during her daily briefing. The Mavericks said they would play the anthem starting Wednesday against Atlanta. So, they didn't want to. The NBA said, hey, that's fine. Now they're saying, nope, that's not fine. You have to play it. So that'll pretty much do it for our update on sports here inside the cave.
All right, awesome stuff. We do those sports updates weekly, weekdays, 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock in the morning on 96.5 The Cave and at 965thecave.com. I just got word from Pat Hayes that he is listening in Georgia as he makes his way down to Florida.
Oh, so, not in Florida yet.
Yeah, I misspoke earlier. I forgot he's driving.
It's got to be still warmer than here, right? I mean, there's no way it's.
Yeah,
No.
They don't own snow shovels in Georgia. Let's be
That's
honest.
true. An inch
Yeah.
of snow shuts down the whole state.
Yeah, schools closed and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So let's go to something we've been pitching here for the entire morning. We finally need to get into things here with the Big Ten basketball season and basketball teams. Who is a contender and who is a pretender? We have not collaborated on this before.
No.
We just said, we'd like to do this topic. We'll pick out a couple teams. We're not going to do them all, obviously, but focus on some of the upper and middle teams in the Big Ten Conference. So I think it's fair to start with the team that finds itself at the top. And Pat, this is for you because I know you're listening. All right, the Michigan Wolverines. They are 13-1 overall, unblemished at home. They're 3-1 away from Ann Arbor. They've won 2 straight, but coming off a long layoff, they're 8-1 in the Big Ten. Chuck, are the Michigan Wolverines contenders or pretenders?
I go definitely contenders. Maybe before, especially before the COVID incident, major contenders. Right now, it's going to be interesting to see how they can bounce back after this delay and pause from that variant strain that they had across campus. So, I still put them as a contender, though.
Now, I guess we needed to outline what's contender, what's pretender.
That's true.
Are we talking winning the conference tournament / regular season? We're just kind of overall they'll contend in the tournament.
I think they're a big contender for the conference championship of the Big Ten,
Mm-hmm.
but also I think they should be a lock for, if everything goes accordingly, one of the number one region, number ones for the March Madness coming up. So I would say they're a big contender in both the conference and going into the big dance.
So that's kind of how we're going with our picks, is a combination of sort of all of those factors. Is like, will they make noise in the Big Ten tournament? Will they make noise in the NCAA? Okay. Gosh, what a tough one to start with. I mean, you can't find a hotter team in college basketball than Michigan, and the unfortunate situation that they're in.
Right.
They haven't played in a couple weeks.
Yeah, and it's questionable how they're going to play when they do start. So.
Right, and to be kind of honest about things, Michigan's done this before, where they've gone on great starts, then they hit some bumps. They haven't hit their bump, so when are they going to?
That is true.
If they do, is this a different Wolverine team? A lot of uncertainty for me. I'm really on the fence. Now, they're obviously a contender to win the Big Ten. So, I will say contender. But they might...
Down the road,
they could be susceptible to an upset.
Right, okay.
Down the road.
That's fair.
And any loss when you're the top team of the conference would be an upset.
Right, yeah.
In all fairness to Michigan. So we'll go down the line here. This team was ranked extremely high to start the season, and they hit their lull kind of early, but they've won 4 straight. It's the Illini of Illinois. They're 9-3 in the Big Ten, 13-5 overall. They're 4-2 on the road, 9-2 at home. Is Illinois a contender or pretender?
I don't even think that I've watched enough Illinois basketball to say. But from what I have seen, they look very strong. They did play Ohio State extremely tough and winning some of those matchups. So, which is how they have a lead over them in the standings, in the conference standings. I gotta say, Illinois is going to be a tough one to beat, but also I think they have more weaknesses than Michigan's basketball team. With that being said, though, it's hard to say what Michigan's going to look like. So Illinois has been playing. They've been playing a lot of games and playing well on the road too, which in college basketball is one of those sports where playing on the road is extremely tough usually. So for Illinois to be where they're at, I think they're definitely contending for the conference. where are they going to finish in the? They're a lock. I think they're one of those for sure. I think to make it
In the
into
tourney,
in the
yeah.
tourney, they're a lock. I would say right now there's only a few teams in the country that are locked really in for the tournament, and I would say Michigan, Illinois, they're for sure going to be there. So how far they go, that's they control their fate, they control their destiny.
There's no question this team is a contender. Their losses this year to number 2 Baylor, that was the marquee matchup way back in December. They lost to Missouri, who's the number 10 team in the country at this time by 3 points. They lost to Rutgers when Rutgers was on the up and up. They lost by 3, though, to the Scarlet Knights.
Yep.
And looking down the road, they lose a tough one to Maryland by 3. That's probably their only bad loss.
Yeah.
Ohio State's not a bad loss.
Yep.
And they just beat up on Wisconsin on Saturday by 15. So they're certainly a contender for all the things you mentioned, Chuck,
Right.
to win the Big Ten, to make a run in the national tournament. So Illinois, congratulations, you are a contender, according to us, inside the cave. All right, we have to do it. I'm sorry,
man.
Michigan fans, but this is the surprise team in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Again,
It
sorry,
really is.
Michigan, but Ohio State is the big story in the Big Ten Conference this year. They did get upset by Maryland on Monday.
Yeah, as we're just talking about
but
it.
that's why they're a contentious conversation-starting
Right.
team. Are the Buckeyes for real? Are they a contender or a pretender? They're number 4 in America. They have to be a contender, right?
I would, and that's the thing. They've been on a hot streak, and they look really good for a while, and then they have these these kind of hiccups where it's like that really happened. They had a loss against Northwestern, a 1-point loss back earlier this season, so that's a tough loss. Purdue, they lost by 7, and but everything else, I mean, they've been pretty solid. Purdue actually got the sweep on them this year. If Purdue hit 67 against Ohio State, you might as well consider Purdue winning because that's what they won. 67 both games.
Huh.
So, is Ohio State a full contender? They're 4 right now in the AP poll, but I don't know if they're actually the number 4. I think Illinois is a better team than Ohio State, and that might be a little Michigan. Trying not to be biased here, but it's also
State of Michigan bias.
Yeah, it's a little hard not to be, but I just don't think they have that same edge that even Illinois. I mean, Illinois has looked like, I haven't watched them that much, but I think what I have seen, they've looked really solid. It's hard to find a weakness in the Fighting Illini, whereas Ohio State has shown some of that weakness. If they get behind, they don't really bounce back as well. They don't have that same fluidity or ability to come back if they get down. So for them, it's like if they get up, they stay up. But if they're down, it's hard for them to kind of come back sometimes. So I want to say as a pretender, I think they're too high for being that good for like how they play. I think their number 4 ranking is too high. I think they can make a push. They can probably be one of the, obviously they're one of the upper teams in the Big Ten, but I don't know if they make it very far in the dance. When we go to March and we're all in Indianapolis. So, well,
I'm telling you, as of this point right now, Ohio State is a contender.
yeah,
I think it's a different Buckeye team, but the famous phrase from all sports media people, but look at these last 4 games. They got Michigan State, Iowa, Illinois. You want to learn about Ohio State?
we're gonna learn.
We're going to learn from the 21st to March 6th. We'll learn a lot
Yep.
about the Buckeyes. But right now, for me, they are a contender. We're up against a break, so we're going to rapid fire these. We're going to get a few
right,
more
let's do
out
it.
there. Are they a contender or a pretender? Wisconsin.
Ooh.
Tough split-second
Yeah,
decision, I know.
Pretender.
Okay. I will say contender.
Okay.
Iowa. Contender, pretender.
They are They're a contender. I think they haven't played as well as they could have, but I think they have it in them still.
I think so too. They need to find it though.
Yeah,
They hit a skid a little bit.
If it's the time to find it, it's right now. So,
Yes.
but I think they do have it.
Purdue.
I think
They're ranked.
Yeah, they are.
You know?
I mean, and they swept the season on Ohio State. So I give them a conference contender, but not a big chance in the dance. So
I like it.
Half and half type thing.
Yep, I think they are right where they are. So, gotta say they're a contender because they're a top 25 team in the country.
Right.
We're gonna get into some controversial spots here, real quick. Indiana, they're 6-6.
I think they're a pretender. I don't think they're as good as. I mean, obviously they're not that great, but I don't think they're even.
You don't think they can contend?
No.
And do you think Michigan State is done? Do you think they've dug their grave and they're laying in it? They're 4-7 in the Big Ten. They need to win some games.
They do
in the conference tournament to get an at-large bid.
Yeah. Right now they're on a play-in kind of spot for the big dance. But also, I mean, the Big Ten tournament, as we've seen over years, Michigan State went in a couple years ago as the #1 team, and Michigan came out the winner. So it's not impossible for a team to be, have a rough regular season. If anything's a rough regular season, Michigan State has definitely been the epitome of it. They've had the COVID, they've had, breaks, they've had, they're in the hottest conference in college basketball right now. So
Yes.
when you have to take a break and you can't play games, it's tough. I think you can't rule out a championship program. They have been historically good. It's one of those things. It's like if all of a sudden you had North Carolina in the team in the league, you'd say North Carolina is still a threat, even if they aren't that great this year. So that's how you got to, you kind of got to pay their dues. You got to respect them that as a championship program. Maybe not this year, but you can never rule them out. Really, Izzo's too good of a coach.
This team stinks right now. Let's be honest. They stink. You just beat Penn State by 2.
Right.
Beat Nebraska by 10. They need to show me something to be a contender. They got Iowa, Purdue, Illinois, Ohio State, Michigan, all ranked teams coming up with a couple unranked in there. To say it's must-win territory for Michigan State is probably an understatement.
Yeah.
You got to sweep these games, make a run in the Big Ten tourney.
You got to make some
to
statement.
be a contender. A lot of streaks are on the line,
Yep.
I feel, for Tom Izzo at Michigan State. So a lot of work to do there. We switch gears at the other side of the break. We're talking Michigan athletics. We will have the senior editor from the Wolverine magazine, John Borton, joining us on the lines here inside the cave. I'm Ian Wendt. That's Chuck Moran. Don't go anywhere.
original sports franchise. 96.5, The Cave.
Some sweet music to Wolverine ears across America, across the world. Hail to the Victors brings us back inside the cave. Ian Wentz, Chuck Moran with you till 9. And we're joined on the phone this morning by the senior editor of the Wolverine magazine, John Borton. Good morning, John.
Morning, Ian. Great to be with you.
Yep, as always, we have you on a Thursday morning to kind of get the pulse on the University of Michigan athletics. And the big news is, teams getting back into a rhythm, and they're starting to get on the court, the mat, and get their seasons back on track, right?
Yes, they are. Michigan, I know in basketball, practicing once again, and that's good. We thought that they were going to have a game originally, would have been this evening, but that Illinois game got wiped out. They decided it was too soon to come back. They are practicing and going to play on Sunday, high noon, against Wisconsin at Wisconsin, the Kohl Center. So, things are rolling again, and I know there's a whole lot of anticipation for a number of different sports, but certainly men's basketball may be at the top of that list.
Yeah, I think you said it best right there, is that it's not just these 12 or so guys that are back on the court. You got programs throughout the campus that are getting into it, but you can't ignore the number 3 team in America, and they've been able to hold on to the Big Ten lead and kind of build on it, even though they haven't played in a couple weeks. Is that good or bad in your mind?
Well, there's a little of both. I mean, Michigan has sat back and watched other Big Ten teams beat up on each other, and the longer they sit, the farther ahead they get in the loss column. Obviously, you got Illinois with 3 losses, is the closest to Michigan's 8-1. Ohio State with 4, Wisconsin, Iowa, Purdue with 5 losses apiece. I mean, it just, they have put themselves in a superior position simply by not playing. But the problem is, you have to play, and that's coming soon. Did you sit out long enough so that you're going to have a lot of rust? Are you going to be able to pick it up? I've talked to Michigan players. I talked to Shawnee Brown a week ago, and some of these guys, and they would rather be on the court, obviously. That said, they feel like they've come together enough and did through the first weeks of the season that they can hit the court and really hit the court running. We'll find out if that's the case. You couldn't pick a tougher place to play under normal circumstances than the Kohl Center, but that's not going to be packed out with Wisconsin fans like it usually is. So they catch a break there. But Michigan has a ridiculously tough schedule coming up. This starts at Wisconsin. Rutgers has played some good ball, and after that you go to Ohio State and Indiana. Indiana, which knocked off Iowa not too long ago. Then you've got Iowa itself. They've struggled, but they've got a good team. So it's one of those deals where you've got to play really well down the stretch, and the stretch just got stretched because they're going to be trying to make up some of these games. So that in itself poses a problem. We don't know what that's like yet. I personally hope they don't make them all up, because otherwise you're going to be playing every other day at times, it seems like. So I'd say there's some good and some bad to it. You watch other teams falling by the wayside, but you still have to go through some of this yourself.
Do you know, or has anyone told you? I know the athletics were shut down because of the variant that was found on campus or discovered on campus. Do you know if that affected any team at Michigan, or it was contained pretty quickly?
Well, it was contained within the squad. That there was one individual that apparently went across the pond for a holiday and brought it back, but it has not been it has not spread. There's no Michigan basketball's had no cases either in men's or women's, I believe, and if men's or women's basketball that would be. So no, there's been no widespread increase in their counts as far as positive tests, and that's part of the frustration. I mean, you listen to Juwan Howard, and he's saying, we did the right thing and all that, and that's what he has to say, basically, because
right.
his boss is making the calls. But I know that there's a lot of frustration. A lot of people wondering, why did we sit this out as we did.
Chuck Moran here. Just curious, when did you think, did it kind of become apparent that this was going to be super serious for Michigan athletics, where it was not going to be kind of up to you guys as, we have to just handle it. If no one tests negative, we can proceed as caution, or was this coming from the top all the way down, them saying, hey, you guys have to stop, there's no question about it?
Well, Chuck, it's there's been a little bit of a blame game here. You had the
I imagine, yeah.
Michigan Department of Health and Human Services giving a strong directive towards Michigan. They took it and ran with it. Michigan, that is, took it as a mandate. When reporters circled back to the state, they said, "Oh no, it was just a suggestion." But it read like a mandate.
Right.
And so, if you're in that position, if you are an administrator, what do? Do you take the risk that you say, we're going to play anyway, and then if you do have a problem, then you've got the state saying, well, we told you so. And so
right.
it's more of a liability thing than in anything else. But it's a tough situation, because for these kids, they've jumped through the hoops, they've adhered to the protocols.
Oh yeah.
They've tested, they've done all the right things. They've lived. I mean, my good friend Angelique Changelis did a great story on this in the Detroit News, where she talked to some of the athletes, and there's this one young man on the cross country team that said, I haven't seen anybody. I haven't any other athletes or anybody other than cross country runners, men and women, and they've been in the bubble, but then all of a sudden they're told, sorry, your season is either gone or dramatically impacted.
No, yeah, I definitely imagine that would be a tough situation to be put in as an athlete, and also as the administrators who have to make these decisions that impact these young people's lives. That these are the reasons they kind of come to the universities and pursue these careers and pathways in athletics, as these connections. So I'm sure this year has been strenuous as all get out, and I'm sure these past 2 weeks haven't been any easier. So it's been interesting to see it from the outside. I was curious to hear kind of that inside viewpoint of where they kind of stood on the feelings and the trials and tribulations. I can only imagine.
Well, there's a push and a pull. I mean, if you asked any one of these athletes not for public consumption, I'm pretty sure that they would say, you know what, we should have been playing. At the same time, as I said, you kind of understand where the administration is coming from because of the liability issues, but you also understand in the big picture, yes, there are older coaches and all, but the athletes themselves, I mean, you're talking about 18 to 22-year-olds in the prime of their condition, which means they have a minuscule chance of having serious consequences come out of this if they did test positive, and they have been quarantined, and they have been doing, as I said, everything right, and it still gets taken away from them. And so, I completely understand their frustration.
Okay.
Senior editor with the Wolverine magazine, John Borton, joining us on the phone. And as we move forward and hopefully get this basketball season, regular season, wrapped up for the Michigan men and the women who are still in the upper echelon of the Big Ten on the women's side of things. The tough question and maybe the looking long term, will the committee to select and put these teams in the bracket consider that 2-week layoff? Will that help or hurt Michigan, or does it really depend on, look, you got to sprint for the last few games, we'll judge you on that? Do you think the pause will affect it at all?
I think Michigan's in a really good position because here they are sitting at number 3 in the nation. A lot of people have talked about them as a number 1 seed. You know, if they come out of this and completely fall apart and just look poor down the stretch, sure, you're going to be hurt, you're going to drop some. But if you play reasonably well, I think anybody would have to take that time off into consideration. And if you dropped a couple, but then start rounding back into shape as you play out the schedule, and certainly if they play the Big Ten tournament, which has been moved from Chicago to Indianapolis, and if you have a decent showing there, win at least a couple of games, I would say that you haven't hurt yourself that much. So, you know, the biggest thing is getting back to where they were when they were seen to be a number 1 seed by some people. So, you know, it's more about what they do than worrying about what you can't change now. The time has gone by.
And real quick, John, I don't know how closely you follow the rest of the Big Ten. I know Michigan is your forte, but Chuck and I were talking before. We have a lot of questions about that school down south, just behind Michigan in the rankings. Do you think the Buckeyes are for real, or it's a bunch of smoke screens?
No, I think that's a very solid team. I've seen them play on a number of occasions and seen them pull out some close games where I thought they were going to take another loss. They have, they've got 4 losses in the Big Ten, and so I think that they're certainly not unbeatable, and I think Michigan is a better team than they are. But at the same time, they've been one of the hottest teams in the Big Ten over the last few weeks, and so you have to respect them for that. I think it's a good team, not a great team.
All right, time just about up, John. We tell our listeners weekly how they can get themselves involved in the Wolverine magazine. I know you have the print copy and you have the online. If you could give out that information.
You bet. We're there every day at thewolverine.com. Check it out. There's plenty of free content, and then there's also a ton of analysis and recruiting and everything else behind the paywall. If you want to sign up, use the code BLUE60 and you can get your first 60 days on the website absolutely free. And the number to call if you're interested in the Wolverine magazine that comes out monthly is 800-421-7751.
All right, awesome stuff as always. John Borton, senior editor from the Wolverine magazine. How will we do this next week, John?
Hopefully you'll do it talking about actual basketball games and other sporting events.
Yeah, we'll be able to break down some film, right?
There you go.
Maybe hopefully talk about some Michigan wins. Again, we appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. Again, John Borton, senior editor of the Wolverine magazine, one of our weekly features here inside the cave. We appreciate it as always. On the other side, our lock of the weekend. I have one in mind. It's a familiar team, quality team in Lenawee County. We'll get to that right after these quick messages. You're listening to Inside the Cave with yours truly, Ian Wendt and Chuck Moran. Welcome inside the cave, 8:50 on a cold Thursday morning in Adrian, Michigan, February 11th. Glad to have you along with us for the ride. It's just about over. Ian Wendt, Chuck Moran. It's been a fun show. We've covered a lot of stuff today. If you want to go back and relive your favorite moments from today, I'm sure there were a handful. Just go find it up on our YouTube page, Lenawee Broadcasting Company. Just give it a subscription and you will be notified when we go live. So a lot of fun stuff. It's always good to talk to John Borton with the Wolverine magazine, get a little insider knowledge about
some
things
insider
happening
training
in Michigan.
Yeah.
A lot of Pistons talk, a lot of Detroit sports talk as well, and we are going to finish up this show today with our lock of the weekend. This week's lock of the weekend is being brought to you by Adrian Locksmith. Let's be honest, you couldn't pick your nose if it weren't attached to your face. So I can't imagine you're any good at picking games. So we're going to help you out with the help of Adrian Locksmith. They have been serving Lenawee County and the surrounding areas for over 20 years. Adrian Locksmith is located at the corner of North Main and Maple Avenue in Adrian. Now, Chuck, that's the first time you've heard that.
Yeah.
Are you hooked in? You want to know about the
No.
lock of the weekend?
Yeah,
Do you
caught
feel
me off
offended
guard.
that you can't pick any games? You know?
I'm just happy my nose is attached, I guess.
Yeah. Tough otherwise. Pat and I normally rock at this. It's one of our, pat ourselves on the back kind of moments
Okay.
for the show. We have a well above 500 record.
Nice.
Picking these things. We try to keep them as local as we can to keep the local interest there. We have picked Michigan basketball, and that would be the game they lost later that week. I think it was the Minnesota game when they lost there. But yeah, we've been burned a couple times.
It happens.
You can't be 100%.
Right, you're human.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with high school basketball, the
Okay.
schedule for today. Just a couple teams that we might go with. A couple matchups. We got Adrian and Chelsea for the boys. Maples pulled a couple upsets off last year. Will they do it again? We'll find out. Blissfield and Hudson, they're battling a couple LCAA teams and Lenawee County teams. Sand Creek and Erie Mason. We have the girls as well, with Adrian hosting Chelsea, Tecumseh at Jackson, Summerfield at Sand Creek, and Lenawee Christian going to Columbia. So it will be one of those games. Stay tuned and see if it is your favorite team or your alma mater, or maybe you attend school there now. We'll be back with our lock of the weekend right after this.
Hi, this is Nick. Do you want to check or change the security on your home or business? If it involves locks, keys, or any kind of video surveillance, think Adrian Locksmith. Renter or employee change? Save both your time and your money by having us rekey your entries. We also offer video surveillance products, along with safes to secure your valuables. And we can install new car transponders and remote fobs for your vehicle locks. To secure it all, search Adrian Locksmith.
All right, here we go. Our lock of the weekend, or lock of the week, lock of tonight. Last week we went with the collegiate hockey teams with Adrian College. I said they would win all their games. They did.
Nice.
I took the men's team to the last 30 seconds to get the last win, but they got it. And this week, it's sort of a no-brainer for the first pick for high school basketball to be the two-time defending state champions in their division. That would be the Lenawee Christian Lady Cougars. So they're going to be our lock of the weekend as they go to Columbia to continue their season. So that's our lock. Lock it in. It's been brought to you by Adrian Locksmith. Security is their business. Adrian Locksmith is at 402 North Main Street in Adrian. Call 517-263-1415 or check them out on Facebook. As always, a big thank you to Adrian Locksmith for sponsoring our lock of the weekend. It's an extended weekend today. They're playing their game tonight. So, final thoughts, Chuck, before we say goodbye?
It's just been fun. It's been a good show. A lot of great stuff talked about. Excited to see Michigan basketball get back out there this weekend. We'll hopefully have some good news next week when we can talk with John and Michigan the Wolverines magazine. So that'll be fun, and I'm excited to be back. Continuing just filling in. It's been a pleasure. Love being on the Cave and just talking sports all morning. You can't go wrong. You know, it's a great way to get the day started. So.
Couldn't agree with you more. That's going to be it for the show today. Chuck will be back next Tuesday with John Kane. He's filling in with the Odd Couple. I'm sure you were told about that.
Yes.
On the air Tuesday, so.
It's a fun time. It's a fun time.
Yeah. The odd one on Tuesday.
Yep.
I'll be back with you next Wednesday. Have a great morning. CBS programming coming up next, the final hour of the DA show. Be sure to tune in weekdays from 7 to 9 a.m. so you can be inside the cave. So long for now. That's Chuck Moran. I'm Ian Wentz for 96.5 The Cave and 965thecave.com.